The following presentation, Belt and Road in the New Geopolitical Competition, China, the US, Europe and Korea was held by Duyeon Kim on the conference Korea, the Iron Silk Road and the Belt and Road Initiative, Soft Power and Hard Power Approaches. The conference discusses an urgent and deep processing topic. How can middle powers like South Korea and Germany benefit from closer economic and political linkages across the Eurasian landmass, in particular the Belt and Road Initiative, dominated by China? Should they rather jump on the bandwagon or should they follow distinct own initiatives, either in their region or interregionally?
Well, thank you very much, Dean Richter, Professor Ralph Warbel, Dr. Bernard Stadliger, and the University of Applied Sciences for inviting me to your very timely and important conference. It's a pleasure and honor to share some opening remarks today. The program is eye-catching because you have successfully gathered all the top scholars in the field among both rising and established experts. Now, I will share some thoughts on the Belt and Road Initiative and the new geopolitical competition, implications for China, the United States, Europe, and South Korea, and put it in a big picture context. Now, dear distinguished colleagues and friends, let us be real and frank from the onset. We are seeing active attempts by China to undermine the rules-based global order and rewrite codes of conduct. Now, surely Beijing is acting in its own national interest, but with measures that nevertheless have serious global implications. We are also seeing a more assertive China under Xi Jinping. Transatlantic and Indo-Pacific allies and partners are facing similar challenges regarding China: coercion, unfair trade practices, disinformation, cyber insecurity, and its pursuit for geopolitical and technological dominance. China's Belt and Road Initiative in particular, as well as signing up for the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and expressing interest in the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, has economic, strategic, and political implications for the United States, Europe, South Korea, and Asia. Rather than helping to close an infrastructure gap in developing countries and contributing to global economic development, the BRI in practice, unlike in theory, undermines macroeconomic stability, promotes exclusive dependence on Chinese technology, favors Chinese companies in the playing field of major markets, contributes to environmental problems, and draws countries into its economic and political orbit. We can expect Beijing to accelerate its BRI efforts amid its competition with the United States. This is why the United States has a critical interest to not only pressure Beijing to improve BRI governance standards, but to also provide an alternative vision to China's ambitious foreign policy initiative. It is in America's interest to foster stability and peaceful change, and we can expect stable, predictable, and peaceful methods to be the Biden administration's first choice of conduct. Now, we have seen China try to peel European Union members away from the unity and cohesion of the Union, while trying to lure the EU away from the United States. We have long seen and continue to see this game in East Asia as well. Many challenges await as the EU navigates its complex yet vital partnership with China and its position amid the US-China strategic competition. The EU has already been a good example for other countries to follow in standing up for shared values. For example, the EU raised human rights at EU-China summits and should continue to do so to not only stand up for democratic values, but to also be among the various steps the EU takes to prevent potentially becoming, or European countries to prevent potentially becoming, a pawn in the US and China power game. The EU-China investment agreement might make it more difficult to raise human rights at the same volume going forward, but should nevertheless be done. And history has shown that states with different values can indeed cooperate. Now, China is undeniably a major global power and player. An individual and global strategy based solely on containment is certainly not the answer. Democratic and like-minded countries will need to compete in some areas and cooperate in other areas with China. It's only natural and understandable that some countries, particularly smaller and middle powers, feel pressured to choose a side between the US and China and are concerned about potential repercussions if they do so. It would certainly be the wish of many countries to maintain a degree of ambiguity and foreign policy autonomy so that they can enjoy the benefits from sound relations with both the United States and China. But the reality is that countries will need to take a stand, however big or small the degree of the direction that needle points to, for their respective national interests and to strengthen their national security. The United States and its allies and partners must compete where necessary and cooperate where they can, but this is certainly no easy feat. It is easier said than done. Now, both competition and cooperation must be based on mutual respect and understanding without compromising values such as democracy, rule of law, and human rights. But these two are challenging tasks whose playbook and manual need to be written along the way. For the next 4 years, we can expect the US-China relationship to be very complex. Unlike with the Soviet Union and with transatlantic partners, mechanisms of crisis prevention, confidence building, and habits of cooperation are not built into the US-China relationship, which is even more complex because it involves every dimension of American life. But decades of habits of cooperation with Europe and clear codes of global exchange, while further strengthening US-EU cooperation, will be vital in ensuring that Beijing does not threaten the prosperity and security of Americans and Europeans any further. In particular, such cooperation can help defend a rules-based international order and human rights, as well as in areas of trade and technology. Now, transatlantic partnerships with Asia will be just as important as well. Linking European allies and partners with Asian allies and partners will be essential and serve as a multiplier effect in defending and promoting our common values and purposes. There are innate cultural differences between Asia and Europe, and connecting them will take time. A coordinated response and system can be constructed thanks to shared values, interests, and purposes. But a global consensus seems to have already formed that economic overdependence on one country can actually constrain states that seek a more autonomous foreign policy. Even absent a US-China competition, there are many areas of cooperation with which Europe, Asia, and South Korea can prosper. Now, South Korea is one example of a country experiencing significant predicaments amid China's rise and US-China strategic competition. It faces a consequential decision whether to join the expanded quadrilateral security dialogue among the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, or called the Quad Plus. It's a question that is perhaps harder for the current progressive government, whose ideology and national identity, supported by its domestic constituents, are underpinned by its quest for greater autonomy from big foreign powers, particularly the United States and Japan. South Korea's choice will be a decisive factor, nevertheless, in determining the future of US-South Korean relations and South Korea's standing in East Asia. South Korea will benefit from joining the Quad Plus for three main reasons. First, it would help protect South Korea's survival and security amid future uncertainties as the strategic landscape of the Indo-Pacific region evolves. This is especially important for a country that has historically faced threats to its survival by a rising power. The US alliance is surely the bedrock of South Korea's security and growth. The Quad would reinforce and strengthen them. Chinese economic retaliation is always a concern for South Korea, understandably so. But membership in the Quad Plus would actually strengthen South Korea's leverage vis-a-vis China. it will be more difficult for Beijing to coerce and economically retaliate against South Korea if Seoul stands with the Quad. It is easier for Beijing to coerce and divide and conquer when countries act alone. This is why it is important for allies and like-minded countries to band together and formulate joint responses to common challenges with common purposes. Standing up for one's values rather than hiding them signifies one's strength and power. Second, joining the Quad Plus early would give Seoul a chance to voice and reflect its positions as the Quad makes decisions on its detailed objectives, principles, and modus operandi. While the Quad is still in its nascent stage, it will be the centripetal force that leads the future security order in the Indo-Pacific region. South Korea has a vital interest in the sea lanes that cross through the South China Sea and Indian Ocean, as they are integral to the country's economy. This alone should be enough reason for Seoul to want a seat at the table. South Korea's participation in an expanded Quad could also be an opportunity for Seoul to promote and garner support for its foreign policies. Third, the Quad would help temper excessively confrontational behaviors by any of its members while competing with China. Quad participants certainly share a common interest to keep China in check, but none of them would want to be pulled into a major conflict. As such, instead of seeing the Quad as a gateway to major confrontation or even conflict with China, South Korea's participation in it will be an opportunity to contribute to ensuring regional stability. More importantly, the objectives of the Quad transcend far beyond checking just one country. They stand to support and protect a free and open, rules-based Indo-Pacific and global system. It is a grouping of shared values. As a vibrant democracy, South Korea has every reason to join the Quad Plus. It would be another opportunity to demonstrate in action its country's values and system boasted by South Korean leaders. Now, the three reasons outlined above may resonate for other countries as they too grapple with similar dilemmas when figuring out their future course and global standing. The analyses and policy recommendations by top scholars in this conference and forthcoming book will serve as important guides for countries in their future navigation of an uncertain terrain. Thank you very much again, and I look forward to the discussion that follows.